Hi students, I'm going to do a video here on medical decision making. One thing to remember in 2023, this was new to us. We no longer have to audit the history and physical. We just need to make sure it's appropriate. We no longer have to audit the examination. We just need to make sure it's appropriate. So make sure you review your textbook on what actually is appropriate. Did they do some type of history? Did they do an examination? Okay, so now everything is going to be based on medical decision making or total time spent. Last semester in the spring, you were always given the level of medical decision making or you were given the total time spent. Now you have to, for some of these, have to figure out the medical decision making. Okay, so with that, I want you to look in your textbook and you do have, and I can't give you a page number because I'm not, but in there you will have a nice little audit tool, figure 111, which gives you the number of diagnoses, it gives you the amount of complexity of data to review, risk of complication or death not treated, all right? And what you do there, you have all the different levels there, okay? So once you get those levels, you take those levels and you go ahead and put them in a chart that I'm going to show you shortly. Okay, so once you get your different levels with the number of diagnosis, whether that could be minimal, low, moderate, or extensive, you also have the complexity, which could be minimal, limited, moderate, extensive, and the risk, minimal, low, moderate, high. Once you have those, you are going to, once you have each of them, so let's say a patient comes in and they have an extensive amount of diagnosis. The complexity was moderate, but the risk was high. Okay, so with that, you only need 2 out of 3 categories must meet or exceed the element. So if I have a high number of diagnoses, moderate level of complexity, and my risk is high, 2 out of 3 were met, so I can go with a high medical decision making. Okay, so if I would have, let's say, low number of diagnosis, limited amount of data, but I had a high risk, okay, I can't go up, so my medical decision making is going to be low. All right, so again, 2 out of the 3 categories must exceed the element. So let's talk about how do we figure out the number of diagnoses? How do we figure out the Okay, the best thing that I would recommend, this is a nice little table too, but I would highly recommend to go to your CPT book. All right, so as I say, go to your CPT book. So this is going to be on page 8. What I really like about this, it kind of explains different things in your CPT book. So how do we come out with, how do we know if it's minimal, low? So right here is a great definition of complexity of problems addressed at the encounter. Okay, so here, self-limited or minor, low, 2 or self-limit, stable, uncomplicated, moderate, it gives you a little bit more accuracy. And to get a high, what's going on here for our diagnosis? So right here it tells you how are we going to figure out what's what. So make sure you read through these, and this is going to give you your diagnosis on what you should be looking at. Okay? So this is going to help you decide if it's high, moderate, or low, or straightforward with the diagnosis, complexity addressed at the encounter. Okay? Now let's go to the complexity of data to be reviewed and go through this chart again. What data was reviewed? Did they order a test? If they ordered a test or required independent historian, that's going to put them up in the high, the extensive. All right. Did they discuss the test interpretation with, let's say, another healthcare professional? Okay, so if we look at moderate, this would be anything from test documents independent, combination of 3 from the following. Did they review prior notes, review results of each unique test, order a unique test? Okay, so these are going to be moderate. So once again, you just kind of want to look to see what the amount of complexity had to be reviewed. And this, again, was it just limited, or was it moderate or high? So then our last one is risk. So once you decide the level of risk, then we go back to look at all these. Was it high risk, moderate, low, or minimal? Okay. Always go down, in your CPT. It's going to give you a little bit more information. It's a little hard to see it here when it is electronic. What I'm trying to say. What you want to do is go into your book. It kind of explains it a little bit better. So once you have that, you want to go back to the chart that I had. Once you figure out each level, you want to go back to that chart. So when you're back to that chart, and when you figure out the diagnosis level, the amount of complexity level, and the risk level, that's where you are going to decide if it's straightforward, low, moderate, or high. Okay. This is in a PowerPoint that you do have. The rest of the information is from your CPT book. So hopefully this helps you. Not all the time. A lot of times your doctor is going to tell you what level of MDM, or they're going to give you the time component. But if you have to, as a coder, figure it out, this is what you're going to go from.